Hey guys, this is Unger the Radar. I'm your host Randy Unger, and this is where we talk all things film, and this is actually our 50th episode.
50?
So yeah, 50,
wow.
The big 5-0.
Woo!
So I want to thank everyone who's been involved up until this point and whoever is going to be involved in the future. So today we have a lovely panel of guest film critics. Ladies first, we've got Miss Amanda Vasquez. It's been a while, Amanda, but you're back. Awesome.
Yay.
Mr. Vinny Bonfanti.
Hey everyone.
Hey, also been a while.
Also, very been a while.
This
Yes.
is great.
Been busy.
Yeah. Saving the world, right?
Saving the world.
Cool. And of course, Robin Channing, mentalist, illusionist, magician, mentalist, illusionist.
Now that worked out for me, actually, mentalist first, because I've been leaning more in that direction anyway. So yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Dude, I would just want to shout out to you. You look good. The whole haircut and clean shaven thing. You rock that look well. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
5 years younger.
Oh, thank you. She said I look 25, so I'm gonna stick with that. So yeah, how's everyone doing today? Vinny, it's been forever.
Yeah, well, since the last show, yeah.
Yeah.
Got married.
Right, that's a biggie.
Married.
Yeah.
Dude, you're off the market. Woo!
What was the market?
Apparently.
Yeah, black market. No.
And I know you have a little doggy at home now.
Yeah, Ollie, little Oliver. Wasn't feeling well a little this week, but now he's better. So
It's good.
yeah,
Nice.
figured dog before a kid.
Yeah. Test it out first.
Test out
yeah.
the waters.
Exactly.
How's
How's parenting going?
It's so far good,
Yeah.
So it's pooing and peeing all over the place, but I do too. So.
What can you
A baby
do?
would do that anyway.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there you go.
What can you do?
Now, Robin, you know Vinny from the past. I don't even know the origin story between the two of you.
Funny you should mention origin
I
story.
know.
First of all,
Yeah.
because, Superman t-shirt and one of the movies that we're about to
Yes,
review,
yeah.
all right? Well played, Randy. Well played.
Segue into that.
Yeah, right? It all connects.
Yes.
All right. Well, there's this movie theater in Westbury that he and I have been bumping into at midnight showings.
This is
Also.
before reserved seating.
Yeah,
Reserved
but
seating.
way before reserve. Back when you had to get in line hours in advance just to get a place to sit.
Mhm.
And he and I have been going to the same movie theater. We've been bumping into each other at the same movie theater
Right.
for opening midnight showings.
Along with
It was
Nick-
midnight. Before it was Thursday nights at like the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock stage.
Yeah.
We're talking midnight showing.
Midnight.
Long
Thursday night.
before the
Yeah.
tragedy at
Thursday night.
Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Those
Well-
Thursday night, midnight shows.
Yeah, they're crazy. On a week, I can't do that on a weekend.
On a weekday, well, when you're diehard fanatic.
That's
I
true.
love that.
And that's the thing I personally love about going to those Thursday night showings, even now, is that, during the weekend you get a big rush of people and everyone talks and they're into it. But when you get the Thursday night people,
Yeah.
everyone's quiet.
Yeah, it's
Everyone
fans.
gets those little jokes. Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you go to a normal group of people and there's like a little joke in a superhero movie,
Yeah.
and like the big fans, like, I get that, you laugh. If you're the only guy laughing, everyone goes, what's he laughing at?
Right.
You
You're,
know?
Yeah,
you're
right.
all on the same page.
Yes.
Yep.
And you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what to you're there together as
Yeah.
fans. And
Everyone's quiet.
Yeah.
I have to disagree with half of that
Well, I
because
said,
because it's actually just said is when the jokes hit, everyone laughs,
Laughs, and
and
you
when
can't hear.
and when something really awesome happens, like
Oh.
the audience just goes nuts. That's just it's like they go nuts when they're supposed to.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the thing I like. There's a certain energy at those Thursday night showings with the diehard fans that like you can only experience with those people.
Yeah.
You know?
And Evan and I were talking about going to the movies. He's like, "Oh, going to the movies is such a quiet thing. It's not very." I'm like, "Evan,
movie
you
you
have not gone to a to an opening night showing, like on a Thursday midnight kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have not done that yet. It's like a sporting event.
It is. It really is.
And it just came to the point where I always come with a big group of people,
Uh-huh.
and we see Robin there, and it's either I was first online or Robin be first. We've never, so it just came to literally every time we go, oh, it's that guy. He came here before me. How dare he?
I know, right? But then we help each other out. It's like if he gets there first, I'm like, okay, I'll get us about.
Yeah, and then they'll cut in line, that kind of thing. So we just
So
so many times we just started talking, becoming friends.
So what
Yeah,
are
right.
some of the movies you guys have seen together?
Oh
Every
God!
Marvel movie.
Oh God! The
DC
Star Wars
movie, Star Wars.
the prequels. Ever since the prequels.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Did you guys like Solo?
What did you think of Solo?
Me personally, I really,
reviewed
really
it.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. We reviewed it together.
We reviewed it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Solo.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Solo was
I liked
like,
it.
it's a movie, I didn't ask for it. I don't think the Star Wars community needed it, but it was enjoyable.
Right.
But it definitely lacked certain things. I mean,
Mhm.
all the behind the scenes stuff with the original directors getting, fired for their vision. You could definitely see that's a product of two directors.
Yeah.
Overall, I enjoyed it. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, I definitely like Rogue One better as like one of those like Star Wars story movies. I felt it was more well structured,
Yeah.
but this wasn't terrible.
Right.
But I didn't need a Solo movie.
Mhm.
Well, I thought it was a little more enjoyable than Rogue One. Honestly, it was just
It was
There was-
fun. No,
there was
it
more
was
fun
fun.
aspect to it,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I will
Because it
admit
was adventurous.
Exactly.
I will admit it was fun. Just for me, Rogue One, that minute Vader sequence was like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm done. This is what I want.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Just the two Vader scenes from Rogue One. That was like, okay, those were my real good fanboy moments right there. I was like, yeah.
That was good.
Especially seeing you on
The
that
bridge
slaughter fest
between
again.
Rogue One and A New Hope, you mean, right? That scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That,
And
you, yeah.
And with Solo also, there was this other guy, I keep forgetting his name, but there was this other guy who the whole fan community wanted as a young Han Solo.
Uh-huh.
He actually played a young Harrison Ford in Age of Adeline. Looks like him, did the voice. Yeah. And literally, I keep forgetting the guys' names, the guys who, Miller, and the guys who did Lego Movie, who were original directors for...
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I know it's Miller and something. They said, "Oh yeah, the first guy who walked in the door is the guy we picked." So it was when I heard that, it was kind of like,
It's
You
weird
really
they're
listen
casting
to the
other
fan.
actors to play a young Harrison Ford.
well, that's the thing too. Like that's it.
but
you
they're
know,
all different.
irreplaceable role. You
Yeah.
know, like it's iconic. Like we're just looking for a new young Harrison Ford.
Right.
It's kind of like, can't really do
Well,
that.
well, you know what? Harrison Ford, and especially the Han Solo character, it's so freaking iconic.
Mhm.
The bar is set way too high, and also
Yeah.
the standards are way too high. So it's
Yeah.
going to be like almost impossible
Yeah.
for anyone to
It
fill the
wasn't
shoes.
terrible, but it wasn't anything like, oh, this guy's so good. You know, it wasn't like
He was okay. I
The
didn't.
only-
He was out.
He,
Like-
he,
Yeah.
he delivered what he was supposed to. I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I kind of compare like when Men in Black 3, like when Josh Brolin did Tommy Lee Jones, I
Yeah.
thought that was really well
You think
done.
that worked?
Yeah, I think that
The,
worked
I thought
well.
he did the voice terrific.
Spot on, yeah.
But he didn't really look like him.
No,
Yeah.
but still, you felt like that was
Yeah.
Kay as a younger Kay.
True.
I didn't really feel like this is what young Han Solo would be like.
Now,
you
on
know?
that token,
Yeah.
what do you think about a young Indiana Jones? Do you guys have any thoughts? Who might be a good Indiana Jones?
Fan favorite is Chris Pratt. I know
Everyone's
that.
saying
Everyone
that.
wants Chris Pratt.
Everyone's
Yeah.
throwing it out there.
Yeah.
It's just one of those hard things because it's like
After Galaxy, I feel like he made that role. And
yeah,
with
well,
Jurassic,
Star-Lord kind of feels that way,
Yeah,
and
like-
definitely like especially
like that,
Jurassic
wa-
World,
like the way what he's wearing, like how he's
like
dressed. I
that
feel like
jungle
that's
guy that is also
He's
That's what
explorer.
people
he's
got.
also
Yeah.
got that kind of
That's
casual
what people
charisma
got.
to him.
So
Chris
Spielberg
Pratt.
obviously likes Pratt. And
Pratt's great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he definitely has a charisma.
I could see Bradley Cooper as like a younger Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's
He's too
Not
pretty.
really,
I think.
but-
Too pretty.
it's hard.
like that pretty boy look.
It's
Doesn't
hard.
work.
Like Chris is more rugged. I think.
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
because we as a fan community, it's like we don't want these things to end, and they're still profitable.
Right.
But then we're so like, you know, when it comes out, oh, this is terrible. We're very like
Hmm.
nitpicky.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially the fanboys.
Like,
us.
we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
fanboys, you know, like the Star Wars, definitely,
Yeah.
especially with Last Jedi, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you
That was
could
good.
go different.
Uh-huh.
It's just, I guess,
You
still
don't
that
want it to-
personality.
yeah, you don't want it to end, but
like
you don't want
with
it
the
to
James
change.
Bond with the Idris Elba.
Oh, here we go.
That's
Yeah.
super
Oh.
different.
That was-
but
that's
it's still a
rumored,
look
too.
about it.
He even said,
He
I
still
don't know,
has a look about him that
Yeah.
could still say James Bond, but
It's so weird. It's the same character, but over the past 50 years,
Mhm.
they've changed the actors, and all like Connery, Moore, Brosnan, Dalton. They're all different in their own way.
You know what it is about that too? Like I'm a big Bond fan. I love the Bond
Yeah.
films. You know,
Here we go.
They've always had no.
No, I'm excited about this right
I
now.
don't personally personally care who it is as long as it feels like Bond.
That's
Idris
what I'm
Elba
saying.
But what does
is
that
a-
mean?
He has
Feels
that
like Bond.
feel.
Like there's got to be an original.
Like that
image.
sophisticated
There's a
guy.
well, first of all, like Casino Royale rebooted the
Mhm.
franchise. You know?
Right.
I think up until that point, Bond became more of a superhero more than an agent.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
when Pierce Brosnan is riding the hood of a car while the title like the
Yeah.
diamond, you know, it was just like
Over
all right,
the
Bond
top.
is a
Honestly,
little
I think it
ridiculous.
got comic booky with Roger Moore.
Well, that was
Like
the 70s.
Moonraker? I
It
mean,
fit,
come on.
it fit the era.
70s,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
all the gadgets, like everything
Yeah,
was, you know,
the
I think-
floating car.
Yeah, I think during that era we were hitting like very tech savvy era in the
Mhm.
70s. So it was like Bond was like a big representation of that. It was like
Yeah.
the cool super spy,
Mhm.
ladies man kind of thing. Like it fit the 70s. Each
Yeah.
Bond kind of fits its era, you know.
Yeah.
True.
And you know what I loved about Daniel Craig is like he's the first Bond that bleeds. Like he's when he gets hit, he hurts. You
That's a
know.
good point.
Every other Bond would get hit and do like a little necktie
Yeah.
thing, you know, and
So
say like a
realistic.
one-liner. But Daniel Craig like bleeds and has to like cover it up and stuff like
Well,
that.
I think
More realistic.
Dalton was pretty gritty and Licensed to Kill.
and nobody liked him, and I did.
I like The Living Daylights. I think
I
that's one of
did
the best
too.
ones.
Mhm.
Dalton, I remember when he said he took on the role because when the Bond like 50th anniversary came, they came with this big box set. And I bought it and I watched all the special features.
Nice.
He said that I wanted to go back to what originally what Ian Fleming, you know, conceived. Where
Yeah.
Bond's like a womanizer.
Mhm.
You know, he's not a nice guy technically.
No,
You know.
he's a killer.
And then yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
that's what Dalton I think was representing, and everyone's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, he's not nice enough." It's like, I have a license to kill. How nice am I supposed to be? You know?
Yeah, at least Connery had like a little smirk here and there. Dalton didn't. He was like a robot. He didn't have any
Yeah.
emotion really.
Connery was like a man's man, you know. At
He
that
was,
era, like you
yeah.
know, this was I think the first Mr. Universe, if I'm not mistaken. It was Connery.
Connery?
Connery was not the first, but he was a Mr. Universe, believe it or not.
Back
Was he-
Look
then,
it up.
yeah,
Oh,
he was
really?
Look
that
it up.
guy.
Connery was.
Well, I know he
bodybuilding.
was into bodybuilding.
He
like
was
he
a
was
Miss-
pretty.
He was either Mr.
built.
Universe, one of the two. I don't know which one exactly, but he was. He was a bodybuilding champion.
Wow.
Look it up.
Wow.
Okay, I believe it.
Yeah.
I'll research that later.
Also,
Only
it was
respect
good
for
for that
something.
era too. I mean, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was like into
way before. I mean, this is
bodybuilding
when
and-
like the most fit you can get
Mhm.
without. Like,
Uh-huh.
this is way before steroids.
This is
Wow.
like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
Probably before.
Whey
that,
protein
Yeah.
powder didn't come
Yeah.
out yet at that time. I
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah. Dr. No came out in 61.
Yeah.
So
Also, it was like before his
So
Yeah.
time.
it was before that. It was like 50s. He was.
Wow.
nice, cool.
So yeah.
I think Pierce Brosnan's probably my favorite Bond.
Yeah, he was good.
He
He,
was
definitely
really
He had the
carried that
look.
line.
I liked it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Tomorrow Never Dies was
He
pretty
was
good,
supposed to be Bond when Timothy Dalton was.
but he was too busy with Remington
Well,
Steele.
what
Yeah,
happened?
yeah.
Well, make a
Mm.
long story short, Remington Steele got canceled, and they had 60 days for someone to buy it. And pretty much, you know, he wanted to be Bond in the worst way, but he still had a contract with the people at the show.
Oh, wow.
Literally, the last day, the 60th day when the contract was going to expire, someone bought it, and he lost out to Bond.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, he was really upset.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long did he have to wait before he finally got his
95.
chance? Like 95.
GoldenEye.
Oh, wow.
GoldenEye, yeah, and that was after
Wow.
Dawn. That was when like another reboot of the.
There was sort of there was a few years of a
Period.
gap,
Yeah.
where they didn't have any Bond movies.
Because you gotta remember, Bond consistently every time it came out was humongous hits.
Yeah.
You know,
And it was like every 2 years,
Every
like
2 years.
like a superhero movie
pretty
Pretty
much,
much.
yeah.
back then, anyway.
Yeah, I mean that. If you look at it, that's like the first real franchise.
Mhm.
Think
Yeah.
about it. You know,
True.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When they've got like over 20 movies.
Yeah.
they're going into I think they're
Mhm.
25th, I believe.
Something like that.
25th, yeah.
That's
Wow.
nuts. That's
Yeah.
great.
But
Rob-
yeah, I don't know.
yeah?
I like the Idris Elba, and I like, but
Oh.
they're in between him or Tom Hardy. I don't know about
Well,
Tom
Henry
Hardy.
Cavill's
Tom
a new
Hardy,
favorite as
no.
well.
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill's like a big.
But he's already a
Oh.
huge character right now.
I remember
Really
him saying in
waiting
an
for the
interview
Idris
he
Elba.
would do both. He said he would do both.
I like Idris as
I like it.
yeah.
I'd like to
Great.
see Idris as,
Right?
as Bond. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what that would do. I'd just
Yeah,
like to
just
see how the
enough
dice would
difference.
roll with that.
Right.
The
'Cause
Bond-
he's so solid.
The Bond
He's
character's
great.
been around so long that it's like a change like that's not going to be so detrimental, you know?
Mhm.
True.
It's kind of like Doctor Who. Now they have a female doctor after 50 years, you know?
So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so they're
it's,
making changes,
yeah.
but
So
the changes have to like
So
be
you think there'll be
accurate.
a female Bond, like a Jamie Bond or something?
well, I'm the type
I
of
don't
guy.
know.
I'm the type of guy, and this is not a sexist or anything like that. I want something new and original.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
like when sometimes
But they just
the
do it
change.
to do it.
Yeah, I don't like when the change has to piggyback off something.
Mhm.
Like, well, what, you don't want a female Bond, so all of a sudden you're sexist. It's like the female
Yeah.
Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, I was
Or
going
the-
to say, I was
or
going to
the
say female
ocean.
Ghostbusters.
Oh,
There we go.
I feel like they just
Mind
did
you,
it to do it.
I was all
Yeah.
for a female Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
I just said that it shouldn't be a reboot. It should be consisting within the same world. Make them
Right.
somehow
Make it canon. Yeah.
canon, but then they want to reboot, and I think that was their biggest flaw. At the end
Well,
of the day.
well, you know what? In the end, it's a gamble. No matter how you slice it, you just
Like,
let
it
the dice roll,
diminishes
see what
it.
happens.
They're
I
just
mean,
doing a
Yeah. certain times reboots work.
Yeah.
You know, other times flop. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I don't want to quote anything, but I'm about to anyway.
Hmm.
The new Fantastic Four, that was not a gamble that worked.
God.
Well, it wasn't a gamble. They were going to lose the
So
rights
horrible.
back to Marvel because there's a clause in the contract if they don't have a film within production within 5 years or something consistently with the characters, that Marvel Studios at the time was going to get the rights back.
Mm.
So it came down to the wire, and the story is that Kevin Feige said, "Hey, we'll let you keep the rights to Fantastic Four." Oh, first it was Daredevil. Daredevil they lost. They go, "Oh, we'll let you keep Daredevil if you give us like Galactus and Silver Surfer."
Wow.
They said no. They got Daredevil back, and then it came down to the wire again. They just made this movie.
They should
that
have
was
given
terrible.
them back the Fantastic
Mm.
Four.
Well, now we got it back. Now they're
It
back
was
home.
So are they going to do a third reboot, like a second reboot of Fantastic Four then?
Apply from Marvel Studios. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
deal officially went through. We got X-Men back. We got Fantastic Four back.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Oh, it's going to explode. I mean, I read somewhere that after
In
the
the
next Avengers, there's going to be like 20 more Marvel movies planned out, and
Yeah,
I
more.
hope. Yeah.
Third Fantastic
because you figure
Four.
every new character they introduce at least has a trilogy on its own,
Mhm.
you know. But now you
But
can
the
go.
first Fantastic Four was really good.
Yeah, but that's
said
yeah.
It was good.
Good
I
for
think
its
it was
time.
Great.
I
But
liked
dig
it.
it.
The
We've
second
had
one's terrible.
we have a
Second one
third.
was terrible.
It was
Amanda.
a good. I call them commercial movies. It was a good commercial movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked Chris Evans' way he was back
It was
then.
good. It was
But here's the thing. Third Fantastic Four, you know what? Let's take it because we have a third Spider-Man now anyway, and that
That's
worked,
true.
and it's within that world. It's
That's
within the
very
the
MCU.
power of threes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We'll see.
Very true.
Because nobody knew, you know, people forget about how Blade was really like the first film that launched this whole comic book craze.
That
No
was
one knew
back in
Blade
ni-
was a comic
Yeah,
book
that was
character.
1998.
No one knew
Yeah,
that.
and then
That
when
was-
Blade made it big, you know, they were like, "Oh, what else is there? X-Men. Oh, let's take a chance." You know, then they took a chance on that. That was huge. Then everyone started buying properties. Well, Spider-Man is big. We'll buy that. X-Men's big. Daredevil. You
Yeah.
know? And then Marvel Studios comes along, can't sell Iron Man, can't sell,
Mhm.
you know, Captain America, and they go, "Oh, well, we'll just do it ourselves."
They're doing it right.
Boy, are they doing it right.
They know what they're doing
They're,
right.
Boy,
now.
they're the new gold standard now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. And if you can't meet the standard of Marvel, then it's not going to work out. And that's what happened
Yeah.
with Justice League. I feel like people compared it a lot.
You
And it
can't-
wasn't standalone. They were like, well, it wasn't as good as this. And, like, it didn't stand alone.
It had
You can't
every
really
potential to be,
you can't
mind you.
compare it.
As everyone knows, I'm a diehard DC fan.
Right.
I
Yes,
love
you are.
Marvel.
And
Yes,
since
you
you,
are.
the last time you've been on the show, Rob and I have waxed philosophical on all that things DC.
Oh yeah.
Well,
You
I'm
know.
going to tell you
And
what
we've
the
been
difference-
messaging
I'm
each
gonna
other,
tell you-
texting back and
I'm
forth.
gonna
about
tell you-
Exactly.
I'll tell you the big difference.
So
right
here you
now.
are finally
Yes.
in the hot seat.
Okay, good. So I'll tell you the big difference.
Take it
right now.
away.
Do it.
It's more corporate than anything else when it comes to DC and Marvel. Marvel, you have Marvel Studios. Kevin Feige produces it. They own the rights to the characters.
Right.
DC, if you want to make a DC film, you have to go through Warner Brothers.
Mhm.
So you got to please Warner Brothers. Not even that, there's individual people who own the rights to the characters.
Mhm.
John Peters owns Batman and Superman. If you want to make a Batman Superman movie, you got to go through him.
They produced the first from 1989, right?
This is after Dick Donner's Superman. At the time, it was the Salkinds.
Hmm.
Salkinds sold it to Canon.
Right.
And after Superman 4 didn't do anything, John Peters bought the rights to the
Two-
film.
Whoa. years after
may I
Quest for
chime in with
Peace.
a question?
Yes.
Where does Michael Uslan fit in this? I thought he had the
He's
rights.
been
to-
produced-
Batman.
he's been
Batman.
producing since '89.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
he produced the film rights for Batman,
Right.
and then Peter Gruber and John Peters did the film rights. But you had it's different. They own partial rights. You have to go through these guys if you ever want to do anything with Batman on film, more
Mhm.
or less.
Right.
See, Michael Uslan has everything with Batman. If
Yeah.
you want to do animation or anything, if you look at it, anything that's produced he produces.
Side
Yeah.
note: I actually bumped into him in the bathroom at New York Comic Con a couple of
Really?
years. Yeah, yeah. It's like,
I-
weren't you in a panel? I just saw. You're,
I wanted to meet him in the worst way because he also owns the film rights to Shadow, and I really want to Shadow.
oh, the
film.
he
I-
really.
Yeah.
He
Yes,
just
does.
started talking.
Oh yeah, right.
Him and Sam Raimi do.
Now, Sam Raimi directing The Shadow.
Well,
Oh, that would be
quick
amazing.
little side note: Sam Raimi couldn't get the rights back in the day to do a Shadow film, and he wanted to do it in the worst way, so he did Darkman, which is pretty much exactly who the Shadow is.
I love Dark
Yeah,
Knight.
right.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorites.
Oh, I never realized that
yeah,
about Dark
it's
Knight.
exactly the same thing.
It really
It's
is.
basically
Makes
like a
sense, he
soft
works
reboot.
around
of
It's
it.
sort of like
Shadow
the-
can take the disguise of many people.
or the
Darkman make masks to look
Yeah,
like
kind of like the
other people.
Phantom of the Opera meets
So you worked
Batman.
around it then.
He worked
Yeah, right.
around it. Yeah.
Wow.
By the
That's
way,
awesome.
bragging rights. I met Michael Uslan at the panel he did at Comic Con years ago,
That's
and
the-
I even went after the panel, got him to sign my badge. I
That's
said,
better.
"Please don't take this the wrong way, but could you sign it to Robin?"
Well, really quick side note too. So he's also on like a lot of fan pages on like the Shadow.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a nice guy.
I'm a big pulp character too.
The boy who loved Batman. Get
Yes.
his book.
That's
all
a
right?
good book.
Yes.
Bob Kane, yeah.
So I actually asked him, hey, is there anything going on with a Shadow movie? He answered, how about the Mets? So I guess he couldn't say anything. Yeah, but getting back to the whole DC thing, so yeah, it was a lot of corporate stuff. I keep forgetting how to say this guy's name, Kevin Chisahara, I think that's how you say it. He's the one who is the CEO of Warner Brothers.
Okay.
You know, everything was like, oh, we can make money like Marvel. Let's do exactly, let's do what they're doing, but don't do the exact same thing because people are going to think we're copying them.
Yeah.
And, then you have Zack Snyder come in to do Man of Steel, which was good. I enjoyed it. It's not the best Superman movie, but it started something.
It was what it was.
Yeah. I felt it was, everyone wanted different. They wanted to bounce off the success of the Dark Knight trilogy.
Right.
Nolan came in. But I kept saying the reason why those films worked is because everything was changed around Batman. Batman still felt, sounded, and looked like Batman. So you're able to play in this world, but you're not compromising the integrity of the character.
Okay.
Man of Steel, I feel for a lot of people, it definitely compromised a lot of integrity. Superman doesn't kill, but whatever you wanted, whatever reasons were done, I get what they were done, but a lot of people weren't happy.
Yeah.
I'm more into the lighthearted comic book feel, like. Superman Returns, I think, was a decent movie.
Yeah, it was, but
and
the
it came out.
It was pretty much a knockoff of Donner's Superman movie from the original.
I think it was more an extension.
Trying to resurrect that, if nothing else.
The film, mind you, I love the movie.
Yeah.
Because it felt like Superman.
Yeah.
But I feel the film didn't know what it wanted to be. Is it a reboot? Is it a sequel?
Right.
What are we doing here?
Right.
And audiences, I guess, couldn't grasp that.
And the final battle kind of fell flat.
Well, it really wasn't a final battle.
Yeah, it was
That's
just
the thing.
Luthor and his goons just kicking him around. It was like weird. Like
yes, on a Kryptonite island.
they stabbed him with
Mind
a
you-
shard of kryptonite and just
they're trying to do like a whole prison scene with that.
It was it was like a prison scene.
Yeah,
Right.
no, like
they shanked him.
The film does have boring parts, but when he opens up the shirt and you hear the Superman theme, like that's what you want.
Right.
And pretty much they wanted to do the opposite because it's like, oh, we got to get away from the Donner films, but at the same time, here's Kevin Feige, who I don't know if everyone knows, was an intern for Richard Donner.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
Also,
I think I saw that. Yeah, that
Jeff
video.
Johns, who works for DC, who's also
Right.
writing the movies, him and Kevin Feige are really good friends in real life because
Nice.
they both were under Richard Donner at the same time.
Mhm.
Funny enough, Kevin Feige says, oh, well, all the Marvel films are inspired by Superman the movie. Every time we do a Marvel film, we watch that film.
What?
So I'm sitting here like, so Marvel gets to be more Superman than Superman does?
Yeah, that's
I know, right?
You know?
Basically.
Yeah.
Yo.
If everyone who's watching, get a chance, look up Richard Donner tribute. They're both on stage, Jeff Johns and Kevin Feige. It's really cool tribute.
Randy,
Yes.
Evan has his wrestling historians here and there.
Yeah.
You've got your cinema historian right here.
I do. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
This is your guy right
I
here.
know.
Because I like to walk the walk and talk the talk. When
Yeah,
some
no.
people say stuff and I'm like, no, you're wrong.
You're good.
So getting back to the whole DC thing, so Warner Brothers, it's the biggest film company. It's been around forever. But I think when it comes to superhero films, they definitely like to get directors and get their vision. That's why the Dark Knight trilogy worked.
Mhm.
But if you're going to do an interconnecting universe, you have to have someone at the top, like Kevin Feige, who sets the tone, And I think all the films were tonally completely off, most
Yeah.
of them. They wanted to. Some people love Batman versus Superman.
I think Wonder Woman's the only decent one.
that is
As a
what-
standalone, yes.
What Richard Donner was to Superman, Patty Jenkins is to Wonder Woman.
Mm.
And ironically enough, her
Yeah.
favorite movie is Superman the movie.
Yeah,
It all comes back to Superman.
It does. It really, really does.
And you know what, guys? Let's segue to our. This is a good segue to our first movie.
Yeah.
Death of Superman.
Yes.
I know, right?
So
I'll let you guys go
appropriately
first. 'Cause I
dressed.
could talk for hours. I'll let
We'll
you guys
save you
go
for the
first.
end.
Yeah, I'll let
Obviously.
you guys go first.
All right.
So we got the okay. It's out on digital and Blu-ray now, and this was actually Robin's suggestion, and I'm actually
Very good
really,
suggestion.
really
Very
glad
good
that he did.
suggestion.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome.
Good. Actually, props to Randy for actually taking the suggestion.
Well,
all right?
I took Cook Up a Storm a few months ago. That was
Yeah,
decent.
I just proved my track record there. So so Randy's like, okay, Robin suggested a good one. Let's see what he comes up with next. Yeah, right.
No, you're a good judge of film, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. But basically, in 1992, DC did the unthinkable. They killed Superman, and this was like a few weeks long story arc where they basically showed the progression of this. This is a huge battle, basically between Doomsday and Superman, going all across the country, slamming into buildings, creating destruction everywhere they go, which ultimately ends up in Metropolis, the center of it, right in front of the Daily Planet.
Mhm.
And Superman dies, and it's a huge epic battle. But what's important is what comes after the battle, after Superman dies. But yeah, Amanda, I want to start with you. What did you think of the death of Superman?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I loved this.
Animated, by the way.
It
Animated.
is animated, and I think I liked it more because it was animated.
Uh-huh.
So you'd have to worry about if the CG looked a little off or if the acting was a little different. Like, because it was animated, you could focus on the characters and how they did the animation. You could focus on the voices. Everything was perfect. I loved the storyline.
Speaking of, Jerry O'Connell is the voice of Superman, Clark Kent, and Rebecca Romaine is Lois
And
Lane.
his wife. That's his wife.
Lois, yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
this was a weird one. I did not agree with this casting choice at all. Rainn Wilson as Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I was a little weirded out by that.
That was
too.
weird. The
That
voice
didn't
was
work at all
weird.
for me. It's like,
Yeah, not at all.
Like, the voice was supposed to be
It was
a lot
it was
more
a subtle
sinister.
output, but you know what? I just took it.
If
I
he
was
made
like,
It
okay,
wasn't
it was
sinister as you would have liked
right. It
to
wasn't
be,
since
though.
it was nerdy. I kept
Yeah.
thinking Dwight Schrute.
It's getting talent, like somewhat of a name to an animated
Right,
movie,
right.
you know. And Rainn Wilson's big on The Office, so it's like, oh, we got him as Lex Luthor. People be interested.
No, it didn't
Yeah.
work for me at all.
No, it didn't work for me either.
Yeah.
Or maybe they wanted
I
him
took
to
it,
seem
so-
more
Yeah.
nerdier, like just not as scary because they had
To me,
Doomsday.
Luthor works best when he's maniacal.
How can you go from Clancy Brown to Rainn
You
Wilson?
can't. Clancy Brown.
It's like, what?
Well, what about James Marsters voiced Lex Luthor in one of the
wasn't
Warner
bad.
Brothers?
He was
He
okay.
was pretty good.
Which one was that?
Which
That was
one?
the 2008 Superman Doomsday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like a far more compacted version. That was like the Warner Brothers Animations department first attempt at one of their standalone animated movies.
So this wasn't the first death of Superman.
No,
No, it
2008. But see, the thing is, the 2008 one was more, I call it like the highlight reel. It tried to do the death and the return all in one film.
Uh-huh.
And you know, the animated movies are only like maybe an hour and 15 minutes
Uh-huh.
long, kind of thing. It was good, but you know, obviously this one was way better.
This
It was
is way
more,
better.
more
Yeah.
to the comic.
But the
Okay.
thing is, this was Warner Brothers' first attempt at a standalone animated film of that
This
kind.
was like the beginning of their DC animated movies.
so
really.
Warner Brothers
But I
only
think
gave
they
so much
hit it
leeway
out
to
park,
the.
though.
to-
It was
to-
really good.
Okay.
so they couldn't be as faithful as they wanted to be.
Right.
But 10 years later,
Oh.
since Warner Brothers Animation is doing so much better than Warner Brothers
Oh,
live action,
live
But
action,
DC's got
Sure.
animation.
Sure.
I gotta say that.
DC
That is
Yeah.
very true.
Just-
Think
they
about
know what
that.
they're doing
But
here.
I don't know why can't they bridge the gap? Like, what's the
Well, that's
Different-
because you know what,
different people in charge.
It's
different people in
so
charge and also
sad.
different target markets. I
The
guess, you know.
storyline was perfect. Like,
But isn't there one guy in
you
charge of
never
DC
felt
films?
bored, you never felt
Like,
Yeah, right now it's Walter Hamada.
And
He's the one who
he
just
doesn't
got
he
promoted.
oversee all?
So it's separate.
No, not
It's
necessarily.
separate.
The entertainment. Believe it or not, Jeff Johns I still think has the entertainment. So there's DC films and DC Entertainment.
That's why.
Like Jeff Johns has a lot of control of that, as far as I know. I know he took. Well, actually, no. Now it's Jim Lee. Jim Lee took over.
So that's for animated exclusively.
Well, it's all entertainment in general, but the films, that's Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has the rights to the
Wow.
entertainment stuff, but it's more other
why
people.
So they probably have a separate person in charge of the Warner Brothers Animation
It
department.
should be, because all of them have been amazing. Every single one, like Flashpoint, the DC.
Flashpoint Paradox?
It's one
Oh
of
my
their best
God,
ones.
yeah,
I cried.
right?
I cried during it. If you haven't seen that, watch
Especially
Well, they're
the
doing a live
end
action
with Bruce
version.
Wayne. That last Bruce Wayne. Oh my
it. Don't
God!
spoil it.
I'm not. All I'm saying is
No.
Bruce Wayne. That's
You
it.
will cry.
That's
you will
it.
Cry.
I have a
Tears
huge-
will flow.
For this movie.
Oh, you will cry.
You
during
guys, you
Flashpoint.
got to send me a list of what to see.
I sent you a list, dude.
You-
It was a Wikipedia list,
Did
from
you-
starting with Superman Doomsday, going down to current events.
All right, you got
You could
Flashpoint
just
on
I
there.
own them all.
Yes,
You can borrow them.
All
from me.
right, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Should have brought them now. We could watch them on the TV
Oh
here.
my goodness.
I mean,
But yeah, I almost cried at the end of this one.
Really?
I was so sad. I was
Yeah.
like, no.
Well, I don't think would it be a spoiler if we say what happens next,
I
guys?
mean,
Well,
it's
the
in
movie's
the-
called The Death of Superman,
it's
so
in
you're
the
not really
title.
spoiling. I
Right.
mean, this is something that's been around since 1992, so the
Yeah.
general audience, I think, knows the
Yeah.
arc of what this is.
Basically, he comes back.
But still, like,
But
the,
it's
the
not just-
epicness
Did
of
you watch
the
the
end.
after credit scenes?
Yes.
The
Yeah,
four-
yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
You have to watch the
You
after
want me to
credits
go
for
into
any
that?
in a minute,
superhero.
for the
Yeah.
brief
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
But I'll start it off for you. So,
Yeah.
All right, so they have the death of Superman and the return of Superman comes right after it.
Yes.
Basically, there's 4 versions.
4 versions. The Reign of the Superman.
The
yeah,
Reign
yeah,
of-
Reign of
right.
Superman.
was
Yeah.
what the comics.
Now
was.
you've got a clone, which is
Superboy.
Superboy.
Yes.
You've got Steel,
John
which-
Henry Irons.
which is a construction worker who turns into a crime fighter.
In the comics, yeah, they kind of morphed it a little bit later
Yeah.
on. He used to be working for LexCorp, and he was into technology, and he quits LexCorp because he finds out all the evil that they're doing.
Right.
And then when Superman dies, he creates his own with his technology,
Right.
with the suit of
He
steel.
creates this
Wow.
suit of armor, and he wields a giant hammer,
And he
like a
actually has
sledgehammer.
the cape that Superman died in. He actually has that, and he puts that on him.
And he's got the crest and so forth.
And also,
Yeah.
side note, Shaq played him in a movie in 1997.
That
No,
had
no, let's not even bring that up. Don't bring that up. Taboo, dude, taboo.
Something inside me was compelled to bring that up.
That
I
has
don't know.
nothing to do with anything Superman.
Well, dude, if I have like food poisoning, I'm not going to bring that up in front of a live audience.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then you've got Cyborg, who where does
Hank Henshaw.
where does he come from?
No spoilers for Amanda, all right?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
gonna-
yeah.
Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but Hank Henshaw, if you saw in this version of the film, the guy that was in space, like, oh, Superman will save us, he didn't come. Hank Henshaw, in the comics, it's a little different. In the comics, it's actually, it was futuristic. They tried rebuilding Superman, and it didn't turn out so well, and he came back from the past. Other versions is that this guy just wants to mock Superman, so he gets taken out of space, aliens do things, then becomes Cyborg Superman.
Kind of like Terminator type of
Yes.
look.
Yes.
Half Cyborg, half Superman.
Okay.
It looks
Yeah.
pretty badass,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
And then finally,
The
Eradicator,
Eradicator.
who is actually Kal-El.
Make a long story short, in the comics, I don't know how the animation movie's going to do it because, things change. In the comics, when Superman died, there was this being, this energy being, this entity that was trying to find a host for its body or it's going to dissipate. And Superman's body was obviously dead, so it took host of that body, more or less, to pertain to itself.
It's pretty wild.
That story was very wild.
And the nice thing about the way Death of Superman was animated, all 4 of those characters were set up in this movie. You know, the astronaut, right?
Huh.
He was pre-established.
Yeah.
And the clones, which became Superboy, that was established. John Henry Irons, we saw him already. And who am I forgetting? Oh yeah, and the Eradicator showed up early in the movie.
Yeah.
The dude with the visor, computer beam.
Yes.
All 4 were already set up.
Yeah.
Well played.
And it's
Yes.
like, I'm watching, it's like, if this was live action and all these where they have the credit scenes, people would be flipping out.
Perfect.
You know?
They set it up nicely. The story was good.
Great story.
Everything
Yeah.
was great.
That's mostly because of Jeff Johns, because
Oh my God.
he's in charge of the creative department.
Yeah.
So
You can't
What-
even say, oh, well, they're going based on the comic books because all of the movies are going based off some comic
Yeah,
book. So
and
you
there's a
can't
lot- and there's
blame
a
the
lot-
story on the
There's
comic
a
book
lot to,
because they
there's a lot
used
to
it
pick from.
too.
There's a lot to pick
Yeah,
from.
they used the same comic books and they still hit it out of the park.
I just
so.
didn't like the fact that they used the new 52 Superman.
That's the only thing that bothered me
Yeah,
about this
right?
entire film.
If they would have stuck to the 92 version, it would have been a lot
Well, you know
better.
what? It started with Flashpoint Paradox because that's when they
Yeah, this
introduced
is
New
their
52.
This is their new 52 universe. I think this is going to be the last of it, though. They're going to be heading off into other things after.
Oh, really?
What did you think overall of the film?
Yeah.
Loved it. I mean, basically you kind of said pretty much what I could say, but there's so little to me to chime in. But that isn't like what that isn't like repeating what you guys have.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I love that Warner Brothers Animation Department can be far more faithful to the source material than their live action departments. That's one thing that I guess we can all agree on. And the thing is with Death of Superman, because it's already been published and all that, it's not like with the comic books where they're just kind of like making up week after week, month after month, or whatever. Here, it's already been established. It's like it's
Right.
written history, so
Yes.
they take more liberties. They can insert things like establishing all 4 Supermen
Yep,
in the
yep.
beginning,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So they were able to be far more artistic and far more creative with the storytelling.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
respect that as well, for sure.
And beyond being faithful to the source material, it was just quite simply enter freaking taining.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the day all you want, and what we want from the live action films. I mean, what I really loved about this film, it's something that Batman versus Superman didn't do for me.
Yeah,
It
right.
was emotional. You had a connection to Superman. My connection to always been with Superman is that he's more human than anybody. Like, here's this god who lives among us, who
Right.
can do whatever he wants. And he lives a meager life of a reporter, 9-to-5 job. He's in love, and yet he has this huge responsibility by his choice to defend the world. So here he is telling Lois his identity and says how much he loves her. And now here's this being that comes across, kicks the crap out of the Justice League within minutes. Like all their head honcho team players. And Superman comes in and is like, I'm going to sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
Because that's who I am. I love you, Lois. And there's that one scene that really, really hit me hard where Superman was almost pretty much dying.
Yeah.
She threw a rock. Here's this guy who's invulnerable. She threw a rock to distract. She loved him so much to distract him one more second of not getting a beating.
Because she knew she couldn't do anything.
She couldn't do
for
anything,
him.
Yeah, right.
but she did it because she loved him so much, I don't want to see him hurt. And that's something that really pissed me off about Batman vs. Superman, is that, it's Henry Cavill's second film, and you have Doomsday in it,
Right.
and you do the whole Death of Superman. There was no emotional core to
Yeah.
get anywhere attached to that this film did.
It was
for
just
me.
overstimulation.
Yeah.
Or not just overstimulation, it was just overcrowded. Because Batman versus Superman, versus Superman had way too much injected up the rectum of that movie.
Reintroducing Batman, doing the Superman, introducing Wonder Woman, and the Death of Superman.
no.
Too much.
They should have just did Death of Superman. Like
They,
that's it.
Warner Brothers live action tried to do in one movie what Marvel did within 4 years building up to Avengers.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
They
yeah.
spaced it out nicely. Like you could
Yeah, right.
digest that one thing happening
And to
right
me,
there.
when everyone says, "Oh, DC's trying to be like Marvel," I said, "No, there's no right or wrong way to do these films. There's only one way to do these films the right way." And it's not that you're copying. It's just
Yeah.
as movie audiences,
Mhm.
you want to see established characters. You want to have an emotional connection, something like the character.
Yeah.
That when something happens, like they die, you want to feel it. You know.
Right.
And like, not to spoil, but Infinity War.
Yeah.
That was very emotional.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
they
before
set it
we-
up nicely.
Before we get into
They had
that,
like 20 different characters in it, but
Yeah.
they were
We
able
actually-
to space it out nicely.
guys, we only have a few more minutes, so let's get into our second, less
Yes.
interesting movie.
Go for it.
Let's go down.
Less interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is an LA Minute,
Yeah.
and it's basically an offbeat dramedy
Yeah.
starring a pretty well-known writer played by Gabriel Byrne,
Mhm.
who's pretty miserable, kind of like feeling very out of place in society. He suddenly meets this performance artist played by Kiersey Clemens.
Mhm.
Her name's Velocity, and basically they go on this weird adventure together.
This
they're-
journey, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the journey.
What a
Yeah.
journey.
It's basically the film. The main theme is celebrity and being in the spotlight, and how each of these characters deals with that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I enjoyed it. Amanda, what did you think of an LA Minute?
Well, I didn't like
I
it.
like it.
I didn't like it at all. Like
No.
there were so many things that I just did not like about it.
Oh my god.
I felt like there's so many better movies that had the same message, but this movie just didn't do it for me. Like
No.
I felt angry the whole movie. I didn't like the main character. I didn't like the rich guy that you just explained. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't identify with any of the characters. And like
Okay.
what we were just saying with the superhero movies, that goes for any movie. Like you want to identify with the characters, you want to feel something for them, and at the end you want to take something away from it. I
Mhm.
felt like none of those boxes were checked off
Whoa.
for this movie.
It's quite a
And
statement.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like what they were going for was like feel compassionate for the less fortunate, like rich people versus poor people. And I don't know. I guess I didn't get that from these characters.
Yeah.
I felt like there were better movies out there that had that characteristic trait, like Trading Places. I feel like
Yeah.
gave me that
Some
that type
similarities
of
there,
like
yeah.
sympathy for the less fortunate,
Mhm.
switching places, switching lives, that type of feel. And this one,
Hmm.
I don't know. I just. And I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but
No.
it just didn't.
It kind of falls flat, but I thought it was decent. I thought it was
I thought the
kind
girl
of cute.
was annoying. I thought he was annoying.
You didn't like Kiersey Clemens?
She was
She
so
pro-
annoying.
She produced it too.
Did
She
she?
did produce
She
it.
produced
She
it,
did.
yeah.
But
She's
I don't
very
know,
passionate about
maybe
it.
they were going for her to be annoying. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe they wanted me to feel that.
She was definitely eccentric, I'll
So
say.
if that's what
Yeah.
they wanted me to feel, then it was a good movie then.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't want me to like her as a character.
Well, there you go. Mission accomplished.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Well, believe it or not, on my honeymoon we went to LA, so I got to, I guess, get that feel.
LA
Kind
Minute?
of, yeah. And
Cool.
I know the homeless is a really big deal in LA. It's very big. I don't
Exactly,
say
it is.
academic, but
But it is.
it is. I guess maybe because it was weird because the film was like one thing at the end. They kind of showed real homeless people. So it's like, was this kind of the message you're trying to get out?
Yeah.
From a film's point of view, I guess it was kind of like being hypocritical. Like it was trying to show how hypocritical people can be, because you have this writer who is making what, I guess, junk. But he would say it like, oh, I'm just writing this book. The book's
Yeah,
junk.
he's a
I want to
hack.
be more
Right.
real, and I meet this very real person.
Yeah.
And then this real person is trying to show him the way, and then I'm getting the book deal and the movie deal, and then she becomes kind of him. It's kind of, then it's like full circle, and he has to redeem himself, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
The acting was decent in the movie,
Yeah.
though. I felt definitely was done independently. You could see the budget in there.
Yeah.
I think the film was just trying to get a message across, more or less.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
And
give you that. The acting was decent.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it kind of
The
reflected.
storyline I didn't like.
Mhm.
Yeah, it kind of reflected, I guess, a lot of things that go on in Hollywood. How you're hot one minute and you're not the next, and how something so 15-minute fame can make you big, and then it
Yeah.
just dwindles away.
Right.
You know.
That's how you have the YouTube stars. That's pretty much how they
That's what
live
it
their
was,
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
right?
15 minutes to make them big.
But
It's true.
I try to view it as like, I guess, like being like the film industry. I tried looking at it wise,
Mhm.
like how you're hot one minute, hot the next,
Mhm.
not hot the next. It was just an interesting concept, but I think the message was mixed.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Robin.
Me personally, my biggest by far, and I just shared this with you, Randy, before.
Mhm.
My biggest gripe with it by far was the treatment of food in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, because with movies like Cook Up the Storm, and I'm also, let me shout out to my anime manga nerd friends out there, Shokugeki no Soma, otherwise known as Food Wars here in the States and other parts of the Western world. I have a big respect for food and cooking, and so the way that opening dish was prepared in his
Right,
home,
right.
and also the food fight that took place, that to me was,
Pissed you off.
for me, that was outrage. All right? Culinary outrage. But that was by far my biggest gripe with the movie.
Okay.
That said, I actually didn't mind the actress who played Velocity. What was her name again?
Kirstie Clemens.
Jesse Clemens.
She
Okay.
was supposed to be Iris West in Justice League, and in
Oh,
Flash.
wow.
There's a deleted scene of that online too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
you can look it
I-
up. She was actually in the movie, but when they cut it up.
Wait, what
she's
character
got-
was she supposed to
Iris
Iris
West.
I
Iris
can
West.
take that.
Which one is that? Is that the Flash's
Uh-huh.
wife?
Girlfriend.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
girlfriend.
can take that.
You
I
can look
see that.
online.
Yeah.
There's a deleted scene with her online.
Oh, cool.
From
That I
Justice
can
League.
see her being.
The
She's
actress
great.
had to handle a lot of dialogue as Velocity
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
movie. I thought she nailed what her character was. Very eccentric at first and
Right.
so forth. But you know what? I liked Gabriel Byrne. I actually liked his character and his performance.
I love him.
Yeah,
He's
I
great.
really like Gabriel. I'm a fan of his.
Good at everything.
I've liked him, especially since The Man in the Iron Mask. I was like
Yep.
really drawn to him. And so
From '98 with
D'Artagnan.
DiCaprio.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the one.
He played
And,
D'Artagnan.
he was also in a little known independent movie called Shade, by the way. All right, that was written and produced by magicians, and so that was like a
You
very
love that
magicians
movie.
I don't love it. I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Stallone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
he's
with
in
Stallone.
that.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx. Yeah, I know that one. I saw that.
Okay,
Yeah.
you'll see that it's more like a magician's fanboy kind of movie. Okay,
Yeah.
so and I liked what Gabriel Byrne did in that one.
Right.
And I'm a fan of Gabriel Byrne. I like his work a lot, and I actually really liked what he did in this movie, in L.A. Minute.
Yeah.
And with me, I felt that the movie was a lot less more of a social commentary than it was a spiritual journey.
Mm.
Because
Yeah, I can
Gabriel
say that.
Byrne,
Yeah.
he had a spiritual journey. First, he was like totally disenfranchised and even despiritualized by his life. He was writing junk and making millions for it.
Right.
He had like a spiritual breakdown, and he now that I think about it, he reminds me of Tom Cruise's character from
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Thank
Yeah.
you. You
I
know,
see that.
so
I see
that's the
that.
kind of journey that he was going through. So
Nice.
he had his breakdown. He was hitting rock bottom, but then he had that revelation to write that more spiritual book, which brought him back.
Mm.
So and then the other thing I liked about this whole thing about the fame aspect, how it can not only did it do the role reversal, how Gabriel Byrne went rock bottom and became homeless, and how the Velocity character went from homeless to being a rock star,
Mhm.
and then afterwards it flipped back around.
Yeah.
I like that because
Yeah.
it wasn't just like the one turnaround; it was another turnaround. So it's like a
'Cause it
seesaw.
makes you
That
look like a hypocrite too.
Yeah,
Which
right.
is what I liked about it.
All right.
yeah, you see her true colors. I like that because it's like, okay, she wasn't like, the whole performance artist. It's like, hey, lift back the curtain. Let's see what the real person is like.
Yeah.
First she was portraying this image of artistic integrity and rebellion. Then, as it turns out, she's just as easily corruptible as anybody
Yeah.
else, and I like that. And at the end, she turned out to be like even worse than how she started. Before she had like a sense of integrity.
Selling
Now,
a certain,
now she's like selling certain products at the end.
Yeah.
certain vibrational products.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Certain battery operated warfare type.
So we've got we've got two who like it, one who doesn't like it. Okay.
I liked it because of the whole individual spiritual journey
Mhm.
Yeah.
that they went through.
Nice.
Especially on Gabriel Byrne. That's what I liked about
By the way, I think my favorite Gabriel Byrne performance, End of Days.
Oh, I was just about to say, I love him. in it.
Yeah,
He
he-
it.
plays
Oh yeah,
great.
End of Days.
He plays
yeah, yeah.
Satan. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I forgot about that.
It's great.
It's like how nonchalant he was. There's that scene in the beginning when the restaurant when he just grabs the girl's tit.
Yep.
And the guy goes, "What are you doing?" He just looks at him. It's like, "Oh, okay."
He can do anything. Gabriel Byrne.
Touch all you want.
Hey.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
What did you think? Did you like it?
What, an LA Minute? Yeah, that was okay. It was decent.
As independent
performances
movies go, yeah.
Yeah, it was charming. It was different. I like the direction as well. Daniel Adams, I actually interviewed him last week. Nice guy, but I wasn't impressed by it. It felt like any other movie, like old washed up guy meets young fresh faced girl.
Yeah.
kind of like Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
With Bill Murray and Scarlett
There's
Johansson.
better movies that have done that concept.
Exactly.
There's better movies that you can get that same concept.
But it's watchable if you see it on cable.
Horrible.
You just have to recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
Right? Don't expect like a hard-on social commentary. Don't expect a devoted social commentary because that's more of a background element than it is a foreground element. All right. So once you know what to expect, once you know what I think is the real direction that the movie is going for, then it becomes much more digestible.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And also, again, I love the fact that it was like in the main part, role reversal, and then in the other, another switch.
Yeah.
That to me really drove it home.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, guys, we got a few more minutes. I want to run our interview of the week.
Sure.
But Amanda, do you have anything you want to plug? Guys, anything you want to plug, or you're good?
Yeah.
All right, you're good. Being awesome. That's what.
Okay.
Vinny, anything you want?
No, nothing. Going
Eternal
on.
Lion, maybe.
Nothing Eternal Lion right now.
Okay.
We're just in pre-production, trying to get our next film going. That's
Okay.
about it.
Cool.
Uh-huh. Keep
Stay
us
tuned.
up to date once you get past that pre-production stage.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Money. All right.
Money.
That's
It
it.
is.
Okay.
Robin, plugs.
RobinChanning.com. I'm like totally redoing my portfolio now, so that website's gonna have a makeover because like my social media is going through a makeover. Lots of new photos and so forth.
Okay.
A new photographer.
Yeah, I've seen some of them. They look
Oh,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Thank you.
Really,
you,
really
thank you.
Yeah, it's
My
looking
Instagram's
good.
been getting a few hits, so I'm like, okay, 20 likes on my photos. So,
There you go.
Better than nothing. All right. And, I'm still working LOL Comedy Club like either every weekend or every other weekend, so that's where you can see me in public. That aside, available for any and all social events and gatherings and so forth. So go ahead, book me.
Unrelated. If anyone's seen Mile 22 this weekend, save your money.
Oh God. Well, I can't stand Mark Wahlberg, so
Don't. This movie was terrible.
I'm not giving him a cent of my money.
This one was bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
He's like, it could have been
And
any character.
if
It would
it's,
have been
and,
bad.
it's an action movie,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yeah. Well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like
Could've
him in
fooled
the
me.
Italian job, though. All right.
See this one.
Gosh.
Okay. Oh, by the way, one last plug about my show. By the
Yeah.
way, I refer to everybody from Deadpool to The Matrix to X-Men movies and all kinds of nerdy stuff under the sun. So that's another incentive to watch my show. Not just the
Awesome.
magic stuff.
Cool, guys. Well, thank you so much. This
Thank
has
you.
been great. I
Thank
hope to
you.
have you on again real soon.
Yeah.
You're always welcome here at Under the Radar.
Mhm.
So yeah. come
Again,
back.
this is your historian right here.
I know he's awesome.
He's your man.
He's
all
got to be my
right?
sidekick. Sit right here.
You got to get another chair for that desk.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be right back with our interview segment. Last week, I interviewed a filmmaker, documentarian Matt Verbois of the new documentary King Cohen, which chronicles the life and times of filmmaker B movie auteur Larry Cohen. And basically, here's the conversation I had with Matt Verbois. Here it is.
Blaxploitation pictures. But when I was a teen, and I was just becoming aware, sort of, that there's people behind, making how do we Blaxploitation pictures. But when I was a teen, and kind of Larry's ace in the hole, I think you know what you're getting into. Larry's just such a wonderful vehicle to kind of tell that tale of movies made a way that you just can't make them anymore.
Yeah. No. So, what is your fascination with Larry? Like, where did this admiration start? When did it begin?
Well, yeah, for me, it began. It's funny because most people come to Larry through the horror pictures or through the Blaxploitation pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a teen, and I was just becoming aware, sort of, that there's people behind, making movies. I'd rented a movie called Bestseller with James Woods and Brian Dennehy. And I remember
in the business, and yeah, I think you handled it beautifully.
Tom Cruise, it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks for the movie star.
So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So I saw King Cohen the other night. It was wild. I loved it. It was
great.
really well made. I'm sure everyone is going to enjoy seeing it, and yeah, it sheds a light on someone kind of an underdog in the business, and yeah, I think you handled it beautifully.
Well, thank you very much. And, the director, Steve Mitchell, really did a great job of finding, the movie out of what was, hours and hours and hours of footage.
Nice.
Larry's such a raconteur. Mm-hmm. It's almost like an embarrassment of riches. It's like, okay, how do we, how do we sort of communicate to people who how do we be entertaining to people who know who he is, mm-hmm. and sort of be a primer for people who have no idea who he is, and sort of maybe expose folks who weren't aware of this type of independent filmmaking, kind of what that was all about. And Larry's just such a wonderful vehicle to kind of tell that tale of movies made a way that you just can't make them anymore.
Now, what is your fascination with Larry? Like, where did this admiration start? When did it begin?
Well, for me, it began. It's funny because most people come to Larry through the horror pictures or through the blaxploitation pictures. Mm-hmm. But when I was a teen and I was just becoming aware, sort of, that there's people behind, making movies, I'd rented a movie called Bestseller with James Woods and Brian Dennehy. And I remember loving the idea so much, this odd idea of kind of a hitman teaming up with not just a cop, but a cop author, to kind of go through this mystery and write a book. And I remember thinking, well, that's such a unique thing. Who wrote that? And that's kind of what led me down the path. And when I saw Larry Cohen's name, it then became, an opposite to the video store to rent pretty much everything he's ever done. And I was always surprised. And I think that's kind of Larry's ace in the hole. It's like, you think you know what you're getting into because it's a genre movie and it typically has sort of rules and ideas of how the story typically goes. And Larry tends to subvert. You start down the road, okay, this is a monster movie. And then it turns into sort of something else entirely in the middle of watching it. So there's always a surprise. And there's always a message, too. And that always kind of stuck with me, too.
What are some of your favorite movies of Larry's?
They jockey for position a lot. Typically, I'd say my favorite is probably Q. Yeah. But that trades places with God Told Me To quite a bit. And actually, as I've gotten older, the J. Edgar, Private Files of J. Edgar Hoover, I think, is a really good movie, too. But I like them pretty much all. I'm a big fan of The Ambulance, and but I think my favorites are Q and God Told Me To, because I think they kind of represent the strongest sort of motifs that Larry kind of works with.
Yeah, the urban cityscape of Manhattan it works in pretty much all of his movies. It's timeless. It's great.
Yeah, and actually, as you make me think about it, in both Q and God Told Me To, there is that there's that urban crime procedural thing going on. In the case of Q, it's really the story of like a two-bit criminal who's kind of working through the city system. And if God Told Me To, it's a cop, kind of on the ground investigating a case. And in both cases, what starts off as like a New York City crime story becomes something, totally nuts.
Right. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was the research process like?
Well, Steve Mitchell, the director, came to me with the project, and then we decided we had to find a way to do it. Both of us were kind of already knowledgeable to some degree on Larry's career because we were fans, and also fans of the 70s and sort of through the mid-80s film. And Steve himself, co-wrote Chopping Mall and directed on that. Yeah. So, so we kind of know that universe a little bit, but really what it was, Steve would do his research and I would back it up a little bit as we would go out and do the interviews with everybody. And, it's almost like it researched itself because Larry's such a detailed storyteller, and his memory was so sort of sharp regarding everything in his career. And then when we would talk to people, it would sort of be like they themselves are opening up all these old memories, and just stories would sort of lead to other stories and lead to other stories.
Wow.
So it was fascinating, to sit in on those interviews. And in some cases, you get to hear personally from some of my own cinematic heroes in addition to Larry. So it was a real treat.
Like, one of the reasons I decided to interview you was because of the film, was King Cohen. You actually interviewed two of my absolute favorite directors of all time, Joe Dante and John Landis.
Yeah.
What were they like?
I think the thing, well, first of all, both were incredibly gracious. Both guys have plenty to do without taking the time out to talk to us. And I think what I was struck by was I knew that they were fans of Larry's and that they appreciated Larry. They were involved in the Masters of Horror, Mick Garris's series. Mm-hmm. I was struck by how much that they truly admired his kind of his work ethic and what he represented. It went deeper than just the casual, oh yeah, his movies are cool. I think at one point in the movie, John Landis says, Larry's really fertile with ideas that he wishes he was as fertile. And I thought, wow, that's kind of what struck me, was both of those guys in particular really admired the sort of Larry's career. And, I think Joe Dante even points out he's really one of the few guys. There's a couple, maybe like Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, but the list is very small of people that sort of worked on the ground in live television in the late 50s, early 60s, and is still here and kind of traveled through, live television into series television in the 60s, into, 70s independent movies, and then, also writing big mainstream scripts like Phone Booth and Cellular. So it's such a unique career, and I think those filmmakers really kind of respected that journey.
Did you have a favorite interview that you did?
They were all pretty great because, as you can imagine, these personalities they're vivid personalities.
Right.
There's no door that we opened where it was sort of blasé. Everything was always interesting. Michael Moriarty in particular, because he hasn't done any interviews for anybody in such a long time. And I remember thinking, are we even going to get him? Is he going to talk to us? We traveled to Vancouver to interview him because he's in Canada. And he's chosen to be in Canada. It was kind of, after Law and Order, he sort of purposefully left the States and never came back here to act. So we kind of didn't know what we were going to get. And he couldn't have been more, more gracious. And so I think it was a lot like Larry himself. Everybody was so surprising,
Right.
Right down to Martin Scorsese, making time for us,
Yeah.
It was a real eye-opener. And Fred Williamson, oh my God, what a, great. There's 3 documentaries in itself.
I know, I love the ending, where Larry's like, you can't cover this all in one documentary.
Well, he even says himself, it's like, you gotta do sequels, you have enough.
Yeah.
So,
King Cohen returns. Right?
Yeah. We're gonna have a healthy Blu-ray, because we have so much stuff.
Nice.
So it'll be, we'll be able to put some of those things we couldn't include in the movie.
Great. Cool. All right. Are there any filmmakers who have influenced your craft?
As this is the first time out producing a feature of any sort for me. Me and my business partner, we are primarily a soundtrack label, La La Land Records.
Right.
But we've always been looking to kind of do other things, and this project made a lot of sense to us, not only because it was something that I was able to actually kind of execute as a producer, along with my producing partner, Dan McKeon, but also because there's a little bit of synergy in our customer base, kind of. Larry was such a big fan of film composers, and we're sort of a film composer label.
Right.
So we knew that, you know, his relationship with Bernard Herrmann, and we talked a little bit about Nicolas Rocha and some of the other composers. So we knew that we were trafficking. We also do a lot of genre soundtracks, so we knew that we were kind of trafficking in a place where we could maybe find customers for the film. So I think sort of identifying that as a producer kind of was the key to getting started. But as far as influence, I mean, when you talk to Larry, and that's kind of surprising with the film, we've had people come up to us after, because we did a lot of those festivals and stuff last year. We've had people come up who didn't know Larry at all and say, boy, we found that movie sort of, you know, inspirational. Like, that guy is really, he just kind of makes it happen.
Right.
And I think, you know, you couldn't help but be inspired talking to Larry, because he kind of did that. As far as the movies he directed and produced himself, you know, he just sort of made those happen. He didn't care. He often jokes, like, he never even used a shot list or a call sheet. He doesn't, it's funny because while he writes, and he does write in the studio system on occasion, when he's directed his own movies, he's always just sort of done it in the face of everybody telling him, oh, well, you can't do this, or that's not the way you're supposed to do things.
Right.
And I tend to admire, I've always had such affection for the B-movie directors and producers, and I think I gravitate towards that.
Nice.
There's a lot of reasons maybe not to do a project, and those reasons not to do it often are the reasons why you absolutely should do it. So I think if I'm influenced at all as a producer, it's probably from the 70s and 80s sort of genre kind of filmmakers and producers. Your Brian Yuznas, who produced things like The Reanimator and stuff like that. So anyway.
Now, are there any other filmmakers or any other subjects you want to tackle in a documentary in the future?
In fact, Steve Mitchell and I have been talking about several different projects, really trying to figure out which makes the most sense. It's often whichever you can get investors to sort of respond to, sometimes leads the way.
Right.
So we hope to. The press reviews and stuff on the movie have been really good, so we hope to turn that into, whatever comes next.
Cool. Now I want to go back to La La Land director. How did that company start?
I was good friends with M.V. Gerhardt. We've been friends for a long time. And I was working film development for a production company that's no longer around. And they were looking to expand their business into score soundtracks.
Right.
And at that time, MV was working over at Crescendo Records. So I knew somebody, a good friend of mine who was actually sort of working for a soundtrack label. So we got together with this other company and did 2 or 3 albums for them. This is like back in 2001. And we sort of we looked at the model and well, we can do this, we can, and I was looking to get out of where I was, so T. And it was a long process. We started the label in 2002, and Brad, worked all kinds of jobs in addition to the label for a very long time.
Right.
But just stuck with it, and it's about 17 years later, we're still releasing movie scores, and really the big fun with the label is going back and restoring older scores and expanding the amount of music. That's really the joy of the record label, to work on older John Williams scores and present them in full and
right.
So
that's good. Who are some of your favorite composers?
I think it's a lot with a lot of people. It's kind of when you grow up, it's sort of what you hear is what influences you. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so it's John Williams. Kind of informs. I can't think of any other composer at the time where it's like the movie and the score can't be separated from each other. You can't sort of think of one without the other. And
what about well, for me, I actually prefer Jerry Goldsmith.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. As I got older, I started to appreciate perhaps Goldsmith even more. But it's a pretty, you know, it's an embarrassment of riches, basically. I mean, but I think between those two guys, and then I love a lot of the synth stuff that we grew up with. I'm a big fan of Harold Faltermeyer. I think some of those guys are incredibly underrepresented, you know. So we try and you know, do work from folks like that as much as we possibly can too.
Now you've done a lot of archived scores. I know you did a bunch of Danny Elfman scores from the late '80s through the '90s.
Yeah, sure.
Have you guys considered doing? Cause I know this was MCA, but did La La Land consider doing music for a darkened theater part 3?
No, it's only because compilation projects like those are such a licensing. It becomes. Let me tell you this: it would become easier to actually do a full-blown release of the particular score in question, as opposed to trying to put a bunch of them together, because you're dealing not only with separate studios,
right?
You're dealing with separate record labels, because even though a studio, you know, does a movie, that doesn't mean that their internal record label did the release. So you're talking about several deals with several different studios, in addition to several deals with several different record companies in addition. It's not impossible, but it becomes, in today's market, it becomes a situation where you end up spending more than you're going to make per unit. But we've dabbled. I think the closest we've come is when we did Ferris Bueller. Because Ferris, there was never a soundtrack release for Ferris, period. So all the songs on the album, and I think there's about 8 or 9 of them, all those had to be separate artist deals in conjunction with the score deal from Paramount. So a lot of times it just becomes, you know, a legal question and a financial question.
I see.
But we got more Elfman coming, so if you're a fan, hang tight.
Huge fan.
Okay, all right. Well, you won't be disappointed. We're working on some cool stuff.
Very nice. So yeah, just last question. What advice do you have for aspiring filmmakers out there?
My advice is, and I can only point to myself, because I moved out here in the 90s. And I think at the time I was how should I say? I was sort of like trying to follow a model that had already been established. It's like, oh, well, maybe you can work in development and you can work your way up, you know, the chain this way. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that really isn't. I mean, there's a route to everything. Those traditional routes are valid, and people follow them all the time. But as I look back, and if I would tell somebody who's starting now, I would say, just find a way to do it. And if you can't do it at the scale that you want, then find something that is at the scale that you want. Find something that's in the scale that you can handle. Because the technology today, you know, I remember, you know, in college, it was like, oh, geez, you know, how are we going to deal with affording to make a project on a 16-millimeter camera? Or, you know, VHS looks like crap. You know, and today, the technology is there for you, and it's cheap.
Right.
So I would say focus on content, because content is king. You have to have something that people, you know, are going to want to see. But don't pay attention to the roadblocks as much. You know, pay attention to what you can do and go do it. And that's, you know, because at the end of the day, it's kind of Larry's story too. It's you know, find a way to get it done, and if you can't get it done at the level you want to get it done, then find a way to do something you're equally as passionate about, but something that's potentially within your means, and just go for it. Just do it. Start talking to friends. Start talking to family. You know, we did financing on King Cohen piece by piece, a documentary. I didn't think my first feature as a producer was going to be a documentary. But you know what? The model of making a documentary fit us perfectly, because if you shoot a narrative film for schedule is as such that you got to shoot usually your whole movie within a couple of weeks.
Right.
Do a documentary, you finance and shoot, you finance and shoot. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not going to get the actors back, or I'm not, you know, you can schedule your subjects and find your subjects. And even in the case of a documentary, the longer production schedule is better because you collect more people along the way. You know, J.J. Abrams did his thing at the last minute, a year and a half after we started. So,
wow.
You know, he just, so it was an ideal project. I would say if you're a producer looking for that first thing and you haven't even thought of doing a documentary, well, consider it. Find a subject you like, something you think that other people will be interested in too, and maybe try that instead.
Cool. Great advice. Thank you. So yeah, Matt, our studio is based in Huntington, Long Island. If you're ever in New York, we'd love to have you stop by for an in-person.
Well,
be great. Yeah, you're always invited. And yeah, I just want to thank you again for your time today. This has been great. King Cohen is a wonderful film, and I hope everyone goes sees it. It's educational for those who don't know of Cohen. And yeah, you did a fantastic job. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thanks. And I do try and get back to you a couple times a year. So
great. All right. Yeah, we'll keep in touch. And yeah. So this has been Under the Radar. I'm your host, Randy Unger. I want to thank everyone for listening today. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, guys, that's our show. I want to thank everyone who is watching today on your devices, at home, what have you. Also, I'd like to thank my special guest film critics today, Amanda Vasquez, Vinny Bonfanti, and magician, mentalist, illusionist extraordinaire, Mr. Robin Channing.
Well, I don't deserve all that many names because Vin Man over here might as well be film historian, especially.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
He's demonstrated it so many times over. I bow to him. All right?
I know. We'll have all you back again real soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great, guys.
He needs as many titles as I do. He needs
We're working on it. We're working on it. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, guys, that's our show. I want to thank everyone who is watching today on your devices, at home, what have you. Also, I'd like to thank my special guest film critics today, Amanda Vasquez, Vinny Bonfanti, and magician, mentalist, illusionist extraordinaire, Mr. Robin Channing.
Well, I don't deserve all that many names because Vin Man over here might as well be film historian, especially.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
He's demonstrated it so many times over. I bow to him. All right?
I know. We'll have all you back again real soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great, guys.
He needs as many titles as I do. He needs
We're working on it. We're working on it. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.